So I saw some of you doing it. I'll get back to that later. Hopefully, you can be more present now. So just take a moment to look around. Just look around the room, see each other. Maybe just give your neighbor to the left just a nod. You don't have to shake hands or anything. And the neighbor to the right, just a little nod of the head. As you were looking around, did you notice where the emergency exits were? Because I'm obligated to point them out to you, apparently. So there are 2 emergency exits on that side. Take a look. And there are 2, or behind the palm, there's at least 1 emergency exit on that side. When I was a kid, I was told about some research that kind of stuck with me, that apparently people who scouted out where the emergency exits were, decided which one they would take, thought about the appropriate route that they could take towards that exit, were more likely to survive a fire or an emergency landing in an aircraft. So, once again, decide which exit you will take and which route you will take. As an adult, I can't help asking, how did the researchers know what the non-survivors were thinking before the accident? Okay. You want to learn something today. You want to connect. You want to be inspired. But why? That's the question. What's the purpose in learning or connecting? I think knowing your purpose obviously makes it much easier to make decisions, to prioritize, to focus on some things and maybe ignore other things. Purpose. That sounds so grandiose. Like, oh, do I have to have a purpose, David? No, I think you don't, because you can also have small purposes. So my contention is that if you have a small purpose, and I'll get to that, that can be just as effective as a grand purpose. In fact, a small purpose can be more useful in giving you direction in your day-to-day activities. So bear with me. There's a few steps that we're going to take that will help you find your small purpose. And I think if you do this, the result is something that will serve you far beyond this conference. So the first task is quite simple. You will just list the normal activities in a week at work. Or if you don't have a normal week, then 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So you will list things like, oh, there's that stand-up, and there's a demo, and there's a meeting, and there's a workshop, and I have my individual time that I'm coding or designing or doing desktop research or whatever it might be. So the first simple task is just to list all your everyday activities. And honestly, if you don't do this, then this talk is going to be very, very boring. So that's one reason at least to do it. You get 2 more minutes of lovely royalty-free music. Now it gets more interesting. For each of those activities that you listed, I want you to think about what impact you want to have in that activity. For example, if you are attending a meeting, think about how that meeting will be different because you were there. So that could be, when I attend a meeting, I make sure that we have some structure. Or, in a meeting, I'm the one who asks those questions that are kind of challenging in order to make sure that we cover all kinds of perspectives. Or it could be, I make sure that everyone's opinion is heard. Or it could be, I always ensure that we have clear actions, everyone knows what to do and who's supposed to do it. So that's an example of the kind of impact you want to have in this kind of small context. And you do that for each activity in your list. Now, there will be some activities where you go, I don't really care about this one, I don't have a strong opinion. Just skip them. It's enough that you can identify a few activities that you care about, where you can identify how you want to make that activity different. And if this is an entirely novel idea for you, then the better. So this is key. You get 3 minutes to do this part. Now, for some of you, you will find that the time for the exercises is too short. And for those of you, I just want to remind you, there's nothing stopping you going back to this and thinking about it in your own time, if you find it meaningful. And then for some of you, the time is too long. You're quickly done, and then you sit around waiting. And for those, I would just like to encourage you to push and persist. I think most people stop thinking too soon. Because when we keep doing it, we can discover something that we didn't know we were going to discover. That often comes after a period of time where things are stagnant and boring. But if you can push past that, that's when you discover something new. So, you have a list, hopefully, of things that you do. You've maybe thought about the impact that you want to have in some of those small activities. If you were going to describe this to a friend and say, I was at this lecture, this guy with the white beard forced me to do this, and I think the kind of impact I want to have in my everyday work is this. What would you tell your friend? Is there a pattern you can see in these different activities? So that's what I want you to do. If you are unsure, I just suggest that you guess. Because if you have something written down, you can always change it, you can react to it, and it's okay. No one's going to see it anyway. So take a guess and write something down in the next 2 minutes. What will you tell your mum? So, you hopefully have a sense of the kind of impact you want to have. Let's try and apply that to getting the most out of this conference. And I'm suggesting that one thing you probably want today is to learn something. Okay, so you no doubt have selected the track that you're going to attend. I imagine you might have looked at the schedule and found a few talks that you find appealing, and you'll go there and hope to pick something up. And that's all fine. But learning is much more effective and much more engaging if you're learning for something. If you're learning in order to be able to solve a particular problem, or learning to be able to do something. So that is the question. What are you learning for? That's a very broad question. So to simplify things, we're going to tie it back to the impact that you want to have. So think back once again to those everyday work situations and think about what knowledge, skill, or behavior would enable you to have more impact of the sort that you wish in those situations. So you don't have to worry too much about the topics in the conference. Just think about what are some things that would make me more effective in the way that I want to be more effective. So you've taken a few moments to think about things that might enable you to have more impact. And that can be your filter for the day. And then obviously the sessions aren't going to be tailored to these particular needs that you've written down. But you can listen for a few things as you attend the talks. For instance, you can listen and just say, how could this thing help me become better and do better? Or are there any phrases or metaphors or examples that the presenter is using that I could borrow and that would help me explain things? If you just feel that something kind of sparked something in you, make a note of it, even if you don't know yet why it sparked something in you. And clearly, write down anything you don't quite understand. Maybe you could phrase a question that you could ask. And it's great if you can think of something that you want to do or look up or explore. So after each talk, maybe just say, here's one thing that I want to do as a consequence of this talk. Now, every talk is not going to blow your mind. Some of them are going to be too basic for you or too advanced or just off topic. But there are still things you can do when you listen to a talk that was not made for you. You can think about, okay, this topic is different, but is there some parallel? Can I apply this in some way to the kind of things that I need? If I disagree with something, if someone is saying something that annoys you or you think is wrong, figure out what you don't like about it and then think about what you would do instead in your presentation. And if things don't make sense, again, write down some questions. And finally, think about things that are not really about the topic. Maybe there's something about the performance, the presentation technique, the visuals used, something that you can borrow. Whew, David, you're really asking a lot of us. You're giving us homework, you're telling us to reflect, pay attention, know what our purpose is. It's a lot to ask. We were hoping to just be entertained. Yeah, I'm slightly sorry, but that also means that you're going to have to be careful with your energy today. So in the breaks, make sure to move. When was the last time you put your arms above your head? I mean, for me, it's weeks ago. So maybe do that. Have a drink of water. All food and lunch will take place in the orangery, which is across from here. And if I dare say, maybe skip one session. Go for a walk. Sorry, organizers. Go for a walk, and you will be better prepared to make use of the rest of the day. You'll be talking to other people during the day. I know that a lot of you know each other already, but you'll also possibly be talking to strangers. I know that can be uncomfortable. That's this thing called networking, which we're supposed to do. So I'd like to give you some suggestions how to make the networking easier. And I think you'll have use of this today, but also your next dinner party. So, regardless of why you're networking, I think it all boils down to making a connection with people. If we don't make a connection, then why would you hire me? Or why would you ask me to do an assignment for you? So we have to make those connections, and we make connections when we like each other, when we have similar interests, maybe similar attitudes and goals. And the way that you find that out is through good conversation. How do we have good conversations? That would be nice. I like good conversations. Well, I have some tips and tricks. This one, if you don't remember anything else, then I hope you remember this one. When you're out in the different places in the breaks and you're standing around, maybe in a little cluster or a semicircle, leave a gap big enough for one more person to join you. That does two things. It makes it easy for someone to join you, but it also signals that you're interested in having other people come and join you. And I think this is especially relevant if you're kind of just hanging around with your normal pals. So leave a gap. Good conversations are always about something. They're not this turn-taking, just exchanging information. Oh, I work at blah, 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 where I'm a blah, blah. Oh, interesting. I earn this much money and I have a big car. That's boring. Good conversations are about something. And that means that someone says something, you either build on what they say or you challenge what they say, and then the conversation grows and becomes, it's a creation that you make together. I know that you've all been told to listen and probably told how to do it. The best way to listen is to not do something else at the same time. So as you are talking, I just listen to you and try and understand what you're saying and what your perspective is, and I don't compose my own answer. Because it's always, you might be going, I want to change the topic to this thing, or I have this opinion. Wait. Just listen and don't compose your own answer. And then when they're done, at that moment, that's when you improvise what you're going to say. And you think, that's going to be hard. Well, it isn't. If you're interested in them and you're curious about them, then the thing that will happen is you'll have a question. So that's what you're going to do. So simple. I wish everyone knew this. Think of the conversations we could have. Okay, I said that good conversations are about something. So I'm going to help you and suggest that you come up with 2 things that you could actually talk about. So the first thing, you're going to come up with 2 topics, basically. One topic is, what is something that I'm genuinely curious to hear other people's opinion about? Think about that and come up with a question. And then the second thing is, okay, maybe you have a reason for networking. Maybe you want to make new friends. Maybe you want a new job. Maybe you want recommendations of books and podcasts, or whatever. All I want you to do is to decide on one result that you wish for as a result of connecting with other people. So you have 3 minutes to think of a question you would like to get people's opinions on, and one kind of result of networking that you're after, even if it's as simple as getting someone's drink ticket because you want more, whatever it is. Here we go. So now you are prepared to attend this conference with intent. I think you're prepared to learn and make connections. But David, you said there were 3 reasons for coming to a conference, and the third one was to be inspired. Well spotted. Well, the problem with inspiration is that it doesn't last. And I have some thoughts about that, and I will share those with you at the end of the day when we all meet back up here for the wrap-up. Before I leave you, I also need to tell you what happens next. So you will all be attending different tracks. If you are part of the strategy and product track, you will go through that door. If you're taking the development track, you'll be staying in this room at least until lunch. And the design track will go out of that door, down a corridor, and take an elevator to the 6th floor. And there are people with refill t-shirts that you can ask, and there are balloons that will magically point the way, like a video game, which direction you need to take. And then after lunch, design will be in here, and development will be on the 6th floor. So, I think you're ready to make the most of this day, and thank you for playing along. Thanks.